Hey guys, it's reading update time once again, and just a couple things off the bat. Let me just say that I'm sick. I have a cold, so I know I look like I got hit by a bus, and my voice is all funky and scratchy, so just bear with me. Also, thank you guys so much for your sweet comments and everything from my last video when I was talking about getting to meet Jared Leto. Um, you guys are really just so nice to me. And it was really funny because on here, but especially on Twitter and Facebook, I got all these messages when he won the Academy Award asking me if I was freaking out. And my answer to that is abso-freaking-lutely. Of course I was. I was so incredibly proud of him, and the speech that he made was just perfect. But anyway, so thank you guys for being so sweet about that. But anyway, and I need to stop saying anyway. Okay, so let's get into the books. Over the last 2.5 weeks or so since I did my last video, I managed to read 5 books, which is awesome. Yes, I think I have my excitement for reading back, and I will get to why in just a minute, and it feels really good, so that's why I was excited to make this video, and I didn't feel like waiting until I felt better and looked better, because I just wanted to talk about these books, so if this is a long video, please forgive me, but yes, anyway. The first book I read, I'm not really sure if I mentioned it in my last video, if I had finished reading it, so I'm just going to mention it really quickly. I read Grave Peril by Jim Butcher. I am in the middle of sort of slowly trying to read reread the whole series again before his new book comes out, which comes out in May, and I doubt I'll be able to read the other, 9 books before it comes out, but, yeah, so Grave Peril was awesome. It was the 3rd book in the Harry Dresden series, and I didn't remember very much of it, and so it almost felt like I was reading a new book, and I ended up actually raising my rating to 5 stars on Goodreads because I enjoyed it so much. The next book I read was Summer Night, also by Jim Butcher, and this is book 4 in the Harry Dresden series, and this was fantastic as well. Really, with the exception of the first 2 books, none of the books in this series have gotten anything less than a 4-star rating from me. Most of them have gotten 5. And, yeah, you guys, you know by now, Harry Dresden is one of my very, very favorite characters of all time. So I definitely highly recommend this series to anybody out there watching this. Okay, and now we get to the other 3 books that I read, and these are the books that sort of really reignited my excitement for reading, and, just sort of made me want to read again, which I haven't really felt like reading in months. Okay, and I'm extremely late to this party because this series of books that I started reading, there's already 10 books in the series that has been released. But it's kind of cool because there's so many books to read that you don't have to wait another year for another book to come out. That's kind of cool. But anyway, so the first book I read, and this is the first book in a series, and it is called The Bat by Jo Nesbø. You guys, where have I been that I haven't read anything by Jo Nesbø before? I mean, when the whole Stieg Larsson thing happened and The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo, I attempted to read that book and I just could not get into it. I didn't, it was very confusing with the names and the towns and all that stuff. I just couldn't get into it. And so because of that, I kind of just didn't want to even try reading any other kind of Scandinavian crime novels. And Jo Nesbø has this incredibly visual, visceral writing style that I absolutely love. It's like you're reading this book and you see the stories playing out in your mind. It totally picture all of these stories up on a big screen. They would translate so well to film. It's just insane. But the first book in the series is called The Bat, and this series is about a police detective in Norway named Harry Hole. It's H-O-L-E, and technically his name is actually pronounced Hula, but I feel really weird when I'm reading the book and saying Hula in my head, so I go with Hole. Whatever. Anyway, Harry is a very sort of fractured, damaged, sort of powder keg of a person. And as you go along in the series, his character becomes more and more and more fragile, more and more vulnerable, and you just know that we are building to a point where eventually something's got to give. He's going to have some kind of a meltdown, either professionally or mentally or personally, and you're kind of trepidatious because trepidatious, is that the right word? I don't know. I'm hopped up on cold medicine, so forgive me if I just used that word incorrectly. But anyway, you know something bad's coming, you know something big is coming, and you're kind of scared to get to that point, but you can't stop reading because the books are so good. And the first book, Harry, like I said, is a policeman in Norway, and he goes to Australia to investigate the murder of this woman who was from Norway, and he becomes tangled up in this sort of Aboriginal culture. And this book is just so beautifully written. I don't want to say very much. That's the one thing when I talk about this series, I can't really say very much about the actual books because you need to experience them yourself. I don't want to give anything away because one of the best aspects of these books is that they're completely full of surprises. You will read these books and 1000% not know where it's going. And the majority of the time, you will not know who the bad guy is until the very end of the book. And that doesn't happen very often for me. Usually I figure that stuff out pretty early on. But so far, that hasn't happened with Joe Nesbo's books. It immediately went to my favorite shelf when I finished it. And the second book I read in the series is called Cockroaches. Now, the weird thing about these books is that his publisher, for some crazy reason, decided to release these books in English out of order. I think they released the third book first, and then the sixth book, and then they went back to the fourth book, and it was really strange. But now all of the books in the series to date have been released in English, and I'm kind of glad I waited because it's just imperative that you start at the beginning because you really need to see Harry's backstory to fully appreciate and to fully understand why he is the way he is. He's a sometimes functioning alcoholic, and then there are other times when he doesn't function at all, and you have to understand his character from the beginning of the series to understand why he's at that particular place at that particular time, if that makes any sense at all. Cockroaches is the second book in the series, and this time Harry ends up going to Hong Kong to investigate the death of a Norwegian ambassador, and all kinds of craziness ensue. Out of the three books that I read by Joe Nesbo, this was not my favorite one. It was still great. I loved it. It kept me guessing to the end, but it wasn't nearly as beautifully written, in my opinion, as the first book. And Joe Nesbo has actually said he felt very rushed when he wrote that book, and it's his least favorite book in the series that he's written. I gave that book 4 stars, and I gave The Bat obviously 5 stars. And then we get to book 3 in the series, which is called The Redbreast. This book kicked my ass, you guys. I don't know what I expected going into this book, but it wasn't what I got. It's this incredibly intricate, beautifully written, heartbreaking, powerful, visceral, visual story. Harry is going through a rough time and is investigating crimes dealing with neo-Nazis in Norway. And then we have the story that's set in 1942 to 1944, dealing with this soldier who falls in love with a nurse when he's in Vienna. And you've got these 2 stories going at the same time. And in the beginning, you're not really sure what their connection is. It kind of almost makes you feel like you're reading 2 separate books. But then, about halfway through, they start to interweave. Is that like the interweb? They start to weave together to make this incredibly complex, just absolutely powerful, beautiful, heart-wrenching story that works on every single level. Every level, you guys. And it had me confused. It had me guessing until very, very close to the end as to what was going on, and I absolutely loved that. I love when I don't automatically figure out what's going on, and I'm guessing until the end. And if you guys haven't gathered by now, I am in love with this series. I'm in love with Harry Hula. and Joe Nesbo, and it's oh my god. Oh my god. I wish I knew somebody else who read these books, because I really wish I could have somebody to talk to about them, because it feels like every time I finish one of the books, I've got so many things I want to say, but nobody would know what I'm talking about because I don't know anybody who's read them yet. Right now, I'm actually reading the fourth book in the Harry Hula series, which is called Nemesis, and I just started it. I think I'm at 10% on my Kindle, and I think I put on Goodreads, I'm like, I have a bad feeling already. I can tell something really terrible is getting ready to happen to poor Harry, and yeah, but it's so good. The series is so amazing. Oh my god. So you have my next video to look forward to, where I'm sure I will be gushing and fangirling over more of the books in the series. So wait for that one. Okay, so otherwise that's about it. That's it for me this time, you guys. I hope everyone's having a great week. And I'm delirious, so I'm going to shut up. I will talk to you later, guys. And as always, thank you for watching and happy reading.